Sometimes these old versions of what our lives were like on screen weren't exactly authentic and true to my lived experience. And so the idea that if we changed what real got put in there, we could actually change the story. And if we're in control of what that real
and see, that's what I was like, oh, you get to change the real.
Right.
So
we're going to have conversations with people that look like us, women, minorities, who are in business, that are looking to change, impact, make a difference in community, and to really outreach to their own audiences and become experts and voices of authority.
Change the Reel, a podcast with Monique Velasquez and
Piper Kessler. For over 20 years, we've run a video production business that has achieved what only 3% of women entrepreneurs have done.
exceed $250,000 in revenue. We want to see business owners that look like us succeed. That's why we've started this podcast.
Change the Reel will drop twice a month.
We'll release 2 types of episodes. One is with Piper and I kicking it and talking about using video in business.
And the second features conversations with business owners using media to drive diverse perspectives. This is Change the Reel.
Representation starts here.
Welcome to Change the Reel.
Representation starts here. Why change the real? What are we talking about here on our podcast?
REEL.
REEL. The real.
Because in the past,
Yeah.
who's been in control of media?
Right. So we wanted to do this, like change the real is like a command, right?
Right.
It is a statement. Change the real. It is what our mission really
I'm going to say
is.
it's a statement more than a command.
I like command. Do it. Change the real! Exclamation point.
Okay.
Because in the movie parlance, right, in the old days, reels were put in order. So you'd have reel 1, which was the opening of the story. Reel 2 was the second part of the story. And maybe reel 3 was the end and the credits. And so you have the reels change in order to create a story in the movie theater. And so we were thinking reel, so change the reel. Sometimes these old versions of what our lives were like on screen weren't exactly authentic and true to my lived experience. And so the idea that if we changed what real got put in there, we could actually change the story. And if we're in control of what that real
And
is.
see, that's what I was like, oh, you get to change the real.
Right.
So
We're going to have conversations with people that look like us, women, minorities, who are in business, that are looking to change, impact, make a difference in community, and to really outreach to their own audiences and become experts and voices of authority in different industries and businesses.
well, I liked it too because it was a play on the word real. So what is real? You get to change the real. Change what's real. So the reality of, because a lot of times you have conversations with people, they are coming from where they are as to what is reality and what is real, and your reality may be very different, and they haven't ever had that experience. So it gives them an aha moment of, oh, well, I never thought about it from your perspective, right? Because everybody always hears, well, that's just the way you feel, and that's the way you take it, or whatever.
It's
and
not real.
It's not my reality.
Right.
So if it's not my reality, how can it possibly be your reality?
I had a photographer artist talking about his experience as a Latino, taking photographs of the Latino
Right,
community.
right.
Jose Galvez, he mentioned that when he was pursuing grants probably in the 90s, early 2000s, that he was told that his work was too, they didn't say too ethnic, but that he wasn't taking a risk because he was staying inside of his own community taking photographs. And a lot of it was, you know, festivals and celebrations, the Latino community, quinceañeras, you know, different pageantry from the church.
So if he had gone to Wall Street and taken photographs, would
Right.
that have been a risk?
Right. And, you know, his take was, too, that he would see white photographers who were photographing the same things he was photographing, and they would be called edgy because they were stepping outside of their own community and taking photographs that he was already taking pictures of. And so changing the real for him, I think, was a shift for those in control of funds for arts. So change the real.
When we first met, I guess I never really thought about the fact, I was watching films, TV, stuff like that. And you get that moment, maybe when you're a kid, hopefully, maybe when you're older. For me, I think it was a little bit older. I think I might have been, to age myself, maybe in my 20s. I was at home. I saw Xena come on TV. And before that, you know, you see a lot of other things, but you see Xena and you see Gabrielle. And all of a sudden, I got super excited because it was like, I think I, in a way, in a weird way, see myself on television.
Subtext.
We had met years before that. We were together then, but before that, and it was the idea of, I always liked the idea of maybe making a film, maybe making music for a film, because I was a musician at the time. It's the idea of doing it. And then all of a sudden, when I was telling people, friends and stuff, well, I want to be a writer, da da da, they started introducing me as a writer. And I was like, wait a minute, I haven't published anything. And then
That was a way to change the real.
That was a way to change the real. And then I met you and I said, well, someday I'd like to do a movie, blah, blah, blah. And you were like, well, let's do it.
Let's do it.
And we became friends through other friends.
Once we were together, I mean, we have spent, you know, a couple lifetimes together.
Yes.
As you know, as a couple, we've been together since the 90s. We did a lot. You were a touring musician. I was in graduate school and starting my career in video production. And so for a little while, we did other people's things. Except for you, you were a musician.
Yeah, okay, yes.
And I really felt, you know, even though you had this experience in business because you worked for books.
An independent bookstore.
Books at Quail Corners.
Was that our first name?
I think that was the first name.
Books at Quail
Corners.
Corners. That sounds right. Yeah, yes. Books at Quail Corners.
And so you got to watch that business launch
from like the very, very beginning.
And so that was super valuable. And I think, you know, as a musician, you know, your ability to market and line up new ways of getting money in and touring. So those things helped me when I decided that I wasn't going to work for somebody anymore. And one of the things that was super helpful in that idea of changing my reel was the fact that I was working for the state and I was watching the state not spend money on the new immigrant population that had grown 400%. And they were choosing not to spend the money even though there was this big need. And so I left with the idea that that was going to be where I filled in, and I changed the community. I helped the community. And so creating Velasquez Digital Media Communications was one of the things that pushed me out. Now, grateful to you that you allowed me to start a company while you were working and I wasn't pulling.
Well, I was still a musician.
Yeah, we lived simply for a little while. But, you know, I think at some point I was scrappy enough and you helped me in the back end and the admin. I needed you in the daily. And so somehow I talked. I don't know if I talked you into.
You were helping us on the tech side of the band. And sometimes you'd be on the stage with us. And on the tech side, there was a lot that needed to be learned. And also, I have to say, when we started the band too, it was like we kind of just fell into our plan wasn't, we didn't really have a plan, but we were just playing in venues. But the LGBTQ community, it became our niche. And I remember in the beginning, it was like there were not that many, even at high levels, there were not that many musicians out. I mean, we were coffee house, but I do remember I had friends say, "Why are you out?
Oh, right, on stage.
You're gonna hurt yourself. You guys could actually get into more venues. You could get more work if you weren't out." And I got a whole, I mean, like, "Hey, let's talk to you, you know, we love you, and maybe you should consider not being out." And
on stage.
on stage.
And in your lyrics.
And I think we were just like, I think it may have crossed our minds for like a millisecond. And I mean, my singing partner, Ruth, was just like, well, that's just not who we are. We're just not going to be that. It did hurt us. It also benefited us because it was like, well, this is who we are. This is authentically,
right.
I can't not be myself.
You were serving an audience that
Right.
was craving that.
We would go to places like coffee shops, wherever, where people were just hanging out. They didn't necessarily know music was going to be there. And I had a few people come up and tell me after a show, they would be like, "I saw you setting up." And I was like, "Oh, I am not going to sit here and listen to music, two girls with guitars." And then they came up, like one of them was shocked. I remember in St. Louis, she came up to me and she was just like, "I just need you to know, I was totally shocked." We stayed. Our intent was, we're going to listen to one song and gently leave so that nobody notices. And she said, "We stayed here all night, and I just need you to know that." And it was the representation. It was like seeing.
You helped change the reel.
That really gives you passion for, well, for us, for going to the next town to perform, for not hardly making any money. But to hear that over and over again is.
You were serving.
Yeah, serving the LGBTQ. I mean, there were girls, just necessarily just like little girls coming up and being like, "Oh, girl, a woman with a guitar."
On
Because I
stage.
remembered the first time I saw a woman, they brought her into my elementary school and she played a cello. And I was absolutely mesmerized. Everything about it.
You became a role model, or that person
She was a role model, and I had questions for her, and she was excited to talk to me. And so us getting together and being like, we could be ourselves, we could be a couple, and we could be in business together.
And really focus on impacting community, whatever community. It has been a pleasure to be able to pick the type of projects
Right.
that we get to do. Now, we get called in often to do, we pitch ourselves and we position ourselves in having an authentic voice for recruiting in different services and different programs, Black and Latino audiences or participants. So we were hired to help with Science House to
Right.
do
Right. Outreach.
outreach to Black and brown students, specifically to their parents, to have an understanding what the program was about. We also did the diabetes outreach
Right.
that was targeted at Black and brown population. So we have that authentic sort of niche that we can get into. And not that other folks can't fill that, but we have a different relationship to the community and being able to find people to be in front of the camera and to be a voice that isn't just, oh, I know somebody who knows somebody. It is actually somebody that we have a personal relationship with that can talk about their personal experience, either with diabetes or as a parent to a child interested in this program. We do a lot of looking at representation on camera.
It is there. It's not an afterthought because it's who we are, right?
Right.
So it is part of everything. And that is if a person shows up, even if we're on somebody else's set.
And it's always a shock to be on somebody else's set because I forget that just you and I being on the set makes it, it's very women-centric, right? And so when I'm on somebody else's set, If I'm by myself, I'm like, I look around, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm the only woman. I'm the
Right.
only brown person.
Right.
And so it becomes an interesting dynamic to go outside of when we are working together. And I've heard on our sets talent say, "Oh my gosh, it's an all-woman crew," which is surprising, but not surprising us because that's kind of our reel. That's our reel. It's not necessarily the other people in the industry's reel.
It gives comfort, I think, to the folks who are in front of the camera of if it's our set, then they know that anybody else who's on the set, it's like the comfort level. It's automatically
Right. We understand that there's some code switching that happens, right? When we have different audiences in
right.
front of
And
us.
if it's our set, then they know that barrier they can let go.
Right. That shield.
The shield.
Yes.
They can let go. And it's like everybody here has been vetted, basically, and you are in a safe space. And you can be yourself, and you don't need to worry about, because I have been on other sets, and the conversation at lunch break that's like, oh my God, I can't believe that was said on
that conversation.
set, and that's unfortunate.
Right. That is why representation on camera matters. And it's not an afterthought for us.
Right.
It is something that is, I want somebody who looks like me.
Right. It would be, I know how I feel showing up on set and being told before I showed up, it's, hey, we have chosen the people who are on set. This is also, you need to know what the subject matter is. And that when you show up, okay, here's what the set is about. Here's what the day is going to be like. Where I have been on other sets where I have no clue who's showing up, and I'm taken aback, and I'm like, okay, I do have to put that shield up today.
Yeah, it's an extra burden to have on set. When I walk into a room, I count the brown faces.
Yeah.
Which I don't know that a lot of other white people do, right? They don't necessarily know that Black people, brown people do that.
Yeah, and I mean, because I do it now, it's like I walk onto set and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the set.
This is the set today, right? You know what the level is of like shields, like how big a shield are you wearing today? We understand that who is in front of the camera. Are they? Do they have an accent? How thick is the accent?
Well, and that goes to who we serve.
Right.
Our comfort level of who we serve, who we are going to be comfortable with and be able and feel like we can really, because we're there for your team. We want to feel like part of your team.
Right.
I mean, because we want it to be enjoyable. I don't want to go to work and be like,
I don't like that client. That is a
bad
feeling.
I have to say it's been a very long time since I have felt that way.
You were hired by somebody else and it wasn't our client.
It wasn't, but it has been a while.
It has been.
And everybody was uncomfortable. Like everybody who was behind the scenes was uncomfortable. And I did say that that's the last time. I mean, so
we get to pick who
we
serve.
get to pick who we serve.
Who do we serve?
I remember sitting down and you saying, well, who would you like to be? Who is your ultimate client? What would be enjoyable? And I remember thinking about it within 2 weeks. I had no clue. We got called by another party because this is what happens when you're in our industry. It's not necessarily that we are directly hired. We may be hired from another company. Right. We got hired by another company because we were in North Carolina and they're in, I think, Florida and California. Anyway, they hired us and we didn't know who we were showing up to film or what. We just knew we asked technically, what do you need? What is the objective? And that big client told us, not the client. And it ended up the client 2 weeks earlier that I had been like, oh, I would love for this to be the situation. And I'll just put the cherry on top and be like, and I would like it to be a woman of color. We went and filmed Rachel Rogers.
Right. She was doing a book launch.
And we were in the middle of it. And every time she said something, I was like,
ringing the bell.
It was ringing the bell. It was just like, oh my God, this is great. So serving that client. It's like when we get to serve someone like that.
And one of the things about ringing the bell and changing the reel at that point is the fact that Rachel Rogers' mission is about helping women identified LGBTQ folk, business owners, reach or create businesses that will sustain 7 figures. And that is an amazing mission. And for us, we see value in helping women identified LGBTQ, people of color that have businesses that have missions that are about impact and creating or destroying, poverty and disinformation and just creating wealth in a different community in a different way. And so for us, being able to serve a client like that is so joyful.
And even before that, I got pulled in, and then eventually you got pulled in with an insurance company. And we were like, okay, an insurance company. But the insurance company had, throughout their building, has their mission stated. And it's all about community. And I don't know that I put my finger on, wow, I feel really comfortable around these people. It was a nice experience. It's a joyful experience. And their reason for doing video, like that you don't necessarily need to do video production for an insurance company. They found value in they could educate their clients so that maybe their clients, these accidents won't happen. There's awareness that occurs and everybody becomes, it's a community and you're there to watch over anything. And if you see where there might be a possibility of an accident or something happen, they realized making these videos and educating their clients helped their bottom line.
Right. And they were like, the messages in the videos didn't feel corporate and
at all.
insurance focused at all. They never talked about the sell. They never talked about what they were covering, what their losses would be. What they were focused on was impacting
Making
in
a difference.
in a positive ways to avoid really terrible things happening.
You feel like you're on a bigger mission, even though you're there for the day to do maybe a single video or a few videos. You get pulled in and you're like, yes, I agree with your mission.
Right.
And it's not just a job.
So there are so many of those experiences because we get to pick who we work with. It's not just insurance companies. We've helped towns sort of do these, change the reel. The mural project in Morrisville. They were the first time that the town had supported public art, and they had decided to do murals in public spaces outside, and they gave these muralists a canvas, and they wanted it documented because it was such a momentous.
Yeah, that could have been the end of it, right? Of they had the money to give to these artists to make murals, but they were, hey, you know what? This is important for our town. We want to document it. We want to have an archive. We want to have an archive, and that was fun.
That was fun. It was joyful because the murals were just incredible and they had some amazing art out in public spaces. And the other thing is, I really feel like that particular project too was impactful because its prime mission, I think, at least in my mind, is that they wanted to continue public funding or the money for arts.
And so anytime they do a video or whatever, it shows, it's like, oh, you show up and you're going to the ball field, and now you could, if you saw the video, it's like, oh, there's an awareness there of someone did fund this. Someone actually, an artist actually came and worked for a month on this.
One of the other things that I enjoy too is like working for the Amante Arts and Culture. It's a Latino community that recognizes in 7 different categories people that contribute to the Latino community across North Carolina. And they do this gala, And I really enjoyed when we were helping them during the pandemic because we couldn't come together. And we devised a creative way to have this event, which is usually filled with musicians, music, dancing, this black tie affair where people get dressed up and they have long speeches and get to accept awards and that sort of thing. And we did a live event that had pre-recorded bits and then live bits of accepting and presenting awards. And that, to me, for that community, I have to say, is like one of the things that I just feel so lucky to be able to do.
Yeah, they give scholarships.
They give scholarships, and I really do feel lucky.
Let me make you cry.
Wow. So, we get to serve different communities.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
do
we
different
get
things.
to be part of the community.
Yeah.
That's why we always say it's hard sometimes because we get involved in a backstage way of being with community. I mean, there's a woman here in town, she lost her job. And then she was going through menopause and thought she was crazy. And I got pulled in just because I had done another project and, things happened where we suddenly met and she felt like she knew me. And I was like, oh my God, have we met before? And I don't remember you. But finding out her story and that she's here in town and she was trying to create community just for herself and what she was going through and that being informative, and now there's a huge worldwide community that she is part of, and now she lost her job, but now she has a new job, and it is serving the community in this way. And
what were you doing for that? Was it something specific that she was doing?
She got interviewed for a documentary called Periodical. She was part of the whole thing of periods and women.
So she was brought in as
one of the experts.
As an expert. So she's an influencer because this was something that she did and has a presence in online in doing videos and such and sharing.
And
was it a blog?
I think she does blogs. I think she does Zoom community meetings. And just information. She's been included in another documentary that I cannot remember the name of at the moment, but very vibrant personality, great. I mean, and that was like, I got to be exposed to this person. I got to be behind the scenes. I got to listen. Bad Faith, the film Bad Faith. I didn't know that this guy was in town. And I get to go listen to him. And I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but oh my God, I get to listen to his transformation. And then later, I didn't even realize what such a big documentary it was, but I got to be part of it. And I was just a better person for having been listened to it. And I got paid that day. So that's a bonus.
Being involved with documentaries, we talk about using, film full frame, and we're going to wrap this up pretty quickly, but being part of Durham, North Carolina, there's the big documentary film festival here, Full Frame, and we were lucky enough to provide live streaming services. This was before the pandemic because they wanted audiences that were around town or out of town that were interested in what was called the speakeasies. They were panel discussions with the documentary filmmakers about different topics. And we got to do this for a good 3-4 years. Working with Full Frame was something that was very intentional because Deidre Hodge was looking for women-owned, minority-owned production companies that could help with Full Frame. She really puts the idea of change the reel out there because she understood, as a woman in charge of a very male-dominated film industry event, that it made a difference who she gave opportunities to or opened the doors for. And so I'm very grateful to her for choosing us and allowing us to do those speakeasies. They were amazing. We got to hear about the hashtag DocSoWhite, and listen to the amazing documentary filmmakers and know about how the two towns of Jasper, they talked about how the two film crews going out into a community creating a documentary about the same event, which was the horrific death, murder of James Bird or Bird. I think his name was Bird. But, they sent a black crew and a white crew to talk about the event to two different communities of Jasper. And so the two towns of Jasper really talks about how changing the reel, I think that is one of those pivotal things. And listening to that panel discussion was an amazing way to solidify and to codify the idea that, yes, we should be changing how we present stories on screen. We should be changing what is in front of and behind the camera, because it makes a difference in the perspective and the authenticity of the story and how biased the story is. We have created Velasquez Digital Media. We want to put that idea of change the reel into this podcast and talk to business owners that look like us, how they're using media, and how they see what they do impacts and changes their community, their immediate community, and influence the broader community that they work in, the systems that they work in.
I mean, so what we did and what we've done for corporates and government stuff, it's like giving that to other voices that may not have ever thought of it. And now with the COVID, everybody is starting to think about hybrid situations. That was a hybrid situation. There were people there that got to be part of that conversation. There were people on the other end of the internet getting to take in that conversation, be exposed to that conversation, even though they weren't in the room. We get to do that. We can do that. We know how to do that. We want other people to realize that tool is available. They may have never thought about, oh, well, this is my audience, but they don't necessarily think of reaching that audience. They think of, I need to show up in person in front of that audience.
And so, like, one of the things that I think of this business, Velasquez Digital Media Communications, was I complicate things. I make things long. But it's the idea that we're a communication company more than we're a video company. It is about the messaging. It is about the channel. And that's where media comes in. But it's also about the communication, as an internal communication, as an external communication. Does the communication have a specific reason for happening? Is there a call to action? Is there an impact? What is it that is happening with the communication? So for us and for what we do, we are more than just, hey, slinging a camera, slinging a boom. We really want to help what your media and your communication, when you're in this realm of video or live streaming, looks like and impacts.
We are invested in what you have to say.
Change the reel.
That's who we are.
Representation starts here.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Change the Reel. If you like the episode, subscribe.
Share it or leave a comment. And remember,
representation starts here. Hasta pronto.
See you soon.